Kando Realm has 4 classes to choose from when you reach level 10. You can either be a warrior, a mage, a thief, or a druid. Once you choose, you cannot go back. So let's find out which one is for you. Now, warrior. So warriors have 3 different builds. You can go all strength, all stamina, or a split down the middle. All strength essentially makes you the bleed master. With the scaling of 200% strength per second for 6 seconds, you're doing 1200% of your strength just by putting on this bleed and running away, or tanking it because you are a warrior. You could tank some hits. Now, cross slash is an ability that starts off pretty strong, but later on it gets a little weaker at the moment at least. The reason being is gear swaps out max health for stamina later on. It does give you a high defense with some stamina, but you still lose the total max health you have, which in turn lowers your cross slash damage and lowers the next ability's damage, demoralize. While it doesn't say it on the tooltip anymore for some reason, demoralize does damage based on your max health. So since I have 792 health, you can see 792. So if I were to say, let's see, take off helmet, now it's 692 damage. So it's 100% of your health. Oh God, you can see my afro. So it's 100% of your health for the minimum damage, which once again makes it so it downgrades the higher level you get. So you're essentially doing less damage because you got better gear. And that's where its strength build kind of just starts to pull forward in the build you want to go. Now, of course, if you're tanking bosses, all stamina's most likely going to be king because, well, that's that much less a healer has to heal you for. So essentially, if you were playing a warrior from the start with no gear at all, this is your very first class, I would personally say your 2 options are to go all strength, bleed stuff and run for your life, or go a hybrid of strength and stamina. That way you can still do some damage and still tank some hits and still level up. Now here's the warrior's bread and butter skill, Stonewall. When it's maxed out for 8 seconds, you don't take any damage. There are some abilities that can still hit you, like there's a pirate boss later on that when he does his big explosion, you'll still get hit by it. But besides stuff like that, you're not taking any damage. You block every single thing that hits you for 8 seconds. And that's why warrior is your king of tanking. Now, there is more to it than just that. You can apply this to your party members as well. Only one of them though. So if you target a party member, click on Stonewall, they now have 100% block. So let's say, for example, you have a warrior that's geared towards full-on tanking, all defense, all stamina. They don't care about damage. Well, you can be the DPS warrior that puts block on them when their block's on cooldown. Or let's say you're trying to level with a mage friend in an area that's all magic damage. Well, have the mage group them all up, put your Stonewall on them, and then the mage will AoE them down. While the demoralized damage gets a little nerfed from having better gear later on, it still has the most important feature of it. Stuns enemies around you for 6 seconds. That is so powerful. You can stun bosses with it. You can AoE stun stuff and then hit those AoE stuff with your cross slash, which does make leveling a lot better, which is why I personally enjoy going a hybrid when I'm leveling, like the strength for the bleed, single target. And if I'm going to AoE stuff down, it's nice to have that extra health and stamina. Now let's talk about the playstyle of the warrior. Because I have the current best armor you can have, my defense is pretty high. So things like this, they're level 45, while I'm level 45, do 1 damage. But we're going to act like they do a little bit more. So let's say I want to AoE these down. You'd go in with your block up, you do your little AoE damage, then you start casting your demoralize when your block is almost off you, and boom, now they're all stunned and my block's off me now. You'd keep cross slashing. Now this is just essentially if you're going to AoE spam without using your bleed. I'm not using my bleed intentionally to explain this a little better and to have more time to explain it because bleed does a lot of damage, but that's essentially the warrior's AoE tactic. With the other one being, of course, you can always try to lure them, and then when you think you're far enough, start casting your AoE. You're going to take a couple hits no matter what, and there you go. Now they're all stunned. See, now that they're moving again, I can put on my block instead. So you can just do it backwards essentially, but that's of course if that's your plan. If you're going to go all stamina, that would be essentially your main form of clearing out the mobs. Since I'm all strength, this is where you see the power at. I'm just going to drop my bleed and walk away. They have no chance. They're done. But of course, the bleed's a 10-second cooldown, so it's not going to be a fast killing machine. Warriors aren't really made for fast clearing. They're made to be the front line of defense. But it doesn't take away from the fact that they have some very powerful damage abilities. They just don't have the consistent damage of like a thief The warrior is also really good for soloing bosses because you're most likely going to regen most of the damage you take during the times that you're stunning the boss or you're blocking them. During those essential key moments, your regen's just going at it, going at it, going at it. But of course, just like thieves, warriors lack magic defense. So if I try to mess with these magic mobs right here, I will get destroyed, but thankfully we have our backup plan, which is our block. Either way, if you're playing warrior, you most likely want to avoid magic damage. Find the enemies that do physical damage and focus on those. So if you like just playing solo and doing lots of damage, or you like playing solo and still having really high sustain and doing a pretty good amount of damage, or you just like being a big old meat shield for the party, warrior might be for you. Now we're going to talk about the mage class. They have, I would say, 2 different builds, with one being the only one I consider worth going. So there's all intelligence, and there's about a 3-to-1 ratio of intelligence and spirit. So you'd go 3 intelligence, 1 spirit. Now, the reason I wouldn't personally go that one, as long as you can tough out the first, let's say 20 levels of mage, you'll have enough points in your brilliant mind, which is the first skill we're going to talk about. Grants 39 additional spirit to self and allies in range. That's at max rank, of course. Low level, it doesn't do that much. Your spirit is your main source of mana regen. So this is essentially a mana regen buff. Now, it's really good for other classes too. That's like your main role in the party. You're going to be giving mana regen to the thief. That's going to be spamming their double strike and running out really quick, or increasing the damage of your druid because the druids scale off spirit. And of course, the mana regen for yourself. Firestorm is your main AoE and currently your only AoE. I consider it to be a pretty okay AoE. Nowhere near as powerful as the thief AoE, but it's still a powerful AoE considering how much utility the mages bring to the table with their other abilities. Long cast time, 3.4 second cast time. You pull the mobs together, hit them with the big AoE. They're most likely going to be cooked after that. 30-second cooldown, though, is the main issue. Now, I personally think the mages are a strong class right now, but I think with future job advancements, they're going to become a force to be reckoned with. Next spell is your main spam, your Frost. This is your bread and butter. It has a 0.5 second cast, 2-second cooldown, does 296% of your intelligence for damage. Now, the main reason it's your bread and butter is you can fight practically any monster you want because you can kite it. So even if a monster is physical damage, which you're weak against, they're not going to catch you. As you can see here, all I have to do is hit this little frozen meddler with a frost attack and just run away, and it's never going to catch me. There's no chance of it ever catching me, and I could just finish it off with another hit, which essentially makes mages strong against physical or strong against magic, because magic they can tank because they're high magical defense, physical they can kite, and that's why I feel like their AoE ability makes a little sense that it's not as strong as the thief AoE. Mages are essentially a utility with high single target damage and slows. Now, mages can also teleport, which is awesome. They can go to Oasis, Selkie, and Zordia currently. May change in the future, I'm pretty sure it will, to give them even more locations. It does cost a runestone, which you can get from mining, but we have a ton of those, so we're going to go ahead and show you how it looks. So let's go to Oasis, cast a teleport, and boom, we're now at the Oasis. It's very, very handy for questing, for traveling. I was told that in the future, mages will also be able to teleport other players, which that's going to be really cool. Now, I personally feel like the best build for mage is all intelligence because it's your main damage source. Nothing's going to hit you, so you shouldn't need stamina. You have your own spirit regen buff. You shouldn't need to put your skills into spirit. I would just go pure intellect and just burst stuff down. So essentially, if you like being a straight up monster, go all intellect. You're going to like mage. So the thief class, I would say, has 3 quote main builds. One, you can go all strength, all agility, or a balance between stam agility or stam strength. I count those as one build because technically just going hybrid tanky is what I'm trying to say. You have to choose between AoE or single target. Single target, agility is king by far. You cannot beat a thief on damage if you go all strength single target due to these simple reasons. Double strike, there you go, that's the main reason. To spam ability to add max rank goes down to 1.1 second cooldown for 250% of your agility per hit. Now, the other attacks like big kick, this is scaled off strength. It doesn't say it on the tooltip, but it's scaled off your strength at 100% value. So it's essentially the same damage as your auto attack. Frenzy, wait, why is my frenzy not maxed up? Whoop. Whoops, there we go. Anyways, Frenzy increases your chance to crit by 100% for 5 seconds, a 30-second cooldown. This essentially makes strength a little more viable in some situations because if you max out your agility, you get higher crit chance. So Frenzy doesn't give you that much of a powerful feeling if you're already critting a lot, but it's still nice to have. Now, Haste is just your AoE buff for your party and yourself, of course. You know, apply it and you move faster, move super fast. Looks like I'm speed hacking. Essentially, it's just a quick way to get around the game, or some boss fights might be good to go in, attack, and go out when needed. So now we have Eviscerate. This ability is amazing for leveling. It does really good AoE bleed with a nice little burst at the start. This is where the strength builds will shine. So if you're kind of used to playing with people and grouping up monsters and AoEing, they're probably going to want a strength thief over an agility thief. If you're leveling alone, I would say in most cases, you don't find too many opportunities to AoE, except for early on, like fighting the walker monsters because they're all really grouped up. Maybe in future updates, when they add more maps and more areas, there might be more occasions to AoE. But right now, I feel like agility is the better option because you can just burst down a monster, go to the next, burst it down in less of the amount of time that it would take you to group up every monster, AoE them, wait almost 30 seconds, and then do that again. But if you were all strength, that's fine. I wouldn't say to panic about it and respec right now. Like, you know, it's not that big of a deal. You can keep playing all strength and it's still viable. Now, I did do a little nerd math behind the whole all strength versus all agility, and agility essentially won by about 30 through 40% in a 2-minute fight, which is pretty significant. But if you're talking AoE, strength will always win. Now, here's a quick example of the playstyle of the thief. Essentially, you would go into the fight and when they're attacking you, wait for their little cast bar, stun them at the very end of their basic attack, not letting them even hit you. Now, if it's off cooldown, you can always gamble with Eviscerate stun or just tank the hit because these are physical monsters, so these shouldn't be hitting me that hard because I have physical defense. You see, 27 is not that bad, 25, that's fine. Point being is don't mess with mages as a thief. If you try to tank a mage monster as a thief, you're done. But you can fight them. Let me go ahead and show you a good example. This is a mad mage. If this thing hits me, I'm cooked. But using the same exact methods as fighting the normal monsters, we go in, we attack, and we interrupt their basic attack, finish them off. Now, I'll let this hit me once for science, but you're going to see how much pain it is. Oh my god, as you can see, that thing will nearly two-shot me. Now, a good thing I would say to do as well, you want to use your Frenzy and Eviscerate as big cooldowns. So now I'm going to go back to these mad mages. I'm going to stun them, use Frenzy, and then just quick burst them down. They're done. Now, if I want to fight this next one, well, my Frenzy's down. It has a long cooldown. So now I stun them and just Eviscerate. Eviscerate will finish them off real fast. At least that's how I play my thief, and I think that's best for maximum survivability, making sure you're rotating your cooldowns and you don't just burst them all at once. Now, that's for the agility thief. If you were a strength thief, you'd most likely use them together because Eviscerate's initial damage can crit. Your bleeds can't crit, but the initial big hit can. So if I were to go down here, turn on my Frenzy, and then Eviscerate, you see they both get crit and they both perish immediately. That is a very powerful double cooldown, but I wouldn't burn that on a single target fight. There's almost no point. Unless, of course, you're fighting something you really shouldn't be fighting yet. Or if you're fighting a boss. For a boss, burn them all together, blow that boss up. Now, thieves do have a little more viability in parties as well. Like, for example, I can stun this guy right here just to make sure he doesn't hit me when I'm not in the green circle yet. And, you know, of course, with the Eviscerate also being a stun, I can use it again. So now he's stunned again. And then the very moment he gets out of his stun, because of big kick being off cooldown, I can stun him again. Essentially, thieves can stun bosses, so having them in a party for boss fights is very, very powerful. Because if they get lucky with their Eviscerate stuns, they could essentially keep a boss stun locked almost. Whoa, that was some big loot. I wasn't expecting that. Now that's practically a quick rundown what the thief brings to the table and what they have to offer. If you like the idea of big single target, go agility. If you like the idea of big AoE with a little bit lower single target, go strength. If you want to be a little tanky, just add a little stamina in the mix. The Druid has two different main builds right now: all spirit, all intelligence. If you go all spirit, like how I'm going, it's basically the DPS build because of Angler's Wind scaling off spirit. Every level up you put into Angler's Wind has higher spirit scaling. More spirit, more damage. I'll be fighting a monster over here. It's level 36, so it's 3 levels above me. I can just throw my damage over time and walk away, and it's a goner. If I was all intelligence, that would not happen. I would be doing very little damage, but my heals would be massive. I only heal for 50 per second with my Flourish being level 10. It does go up higher level. I just don't have it that high level because, well, I'm not a healer. Not a main healer, I should say. So if I were to grab all my stats that I have right now into spirit and put it into intelligence, this would be healing for about 88 per second instead, which would, be a much bigger heal. So the Druid skills are Angler's Wind, which is their only DPS ability currently until like the job classes in the future. Bloom, which is technically your spam heal ability. It's an AoE heal, instant heal. Flourish is your healing over time. You put it on somebody and, well, they heal over time. Now Invigorate's your big heal. It's your cooldown that's like, oh no, this tank is about to go down. It scales off 500% of your intelligence. So even at level 1, it does 336, which is almost all my health. If I were to, even put 50 points of my spirit into intelligence, that would make that heal much more massive already, like double it almost. Restore is essentially a DPS burst at low level, but at higher level, 40 spirit's not going to be a lot. It might be better to put on a party member to increase their mana regen for a little bit. So that being said, if you enjoy the putting a damage over time and kiting stuff gameplay, then the Druid works. There are other classes that play like this as well, but that's essentially how you're going to have to play Druid if you're going to level up. Now, of course, there's also magic enemies, but since you have intelligence or spirit, both of those stats get magic defense. You should be able to tank those if you're the right level for it. If you're not the right level, you might still take a little damage unless you have like really good gear. Or of course, good food buffs. But we're not talking about crafting right now. So should you play Druid? If you like low DPS with big heals or pretty alright DPS with low heals, then yes, Druid's for you. And that's it. That's a quick rundown of the basic essentials of each class and the basic reasons why you might want to pick that class. There's always going to be more in-depth reasons to choose each one. These are just the more baseline reasons. So when you first start the game, you at least have an idea, which class do I want to choose? You can like, subscribe, all that cool stuff, but mainly, if you can, leave a comment on which class you prefer, which one you're excited about trying, or just which one you don't like. And I'll try to give you a response that might change your mind, or I'll just agree with you and say, yeah, that class sucks. I know a lot of people are interested in gathering and crafting as well, so I may make a video for that too. See you in the next one.